Ladies and gentlemen, want to thank you all for coming this lovely evening. And my name is Kevin Clouden. I'm Executive Director of the California Center at the Milken Institute. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit economic think tank. And for us, the subject this evening, transportation, is an essential one. And we are very grateful that we get to cover this topic as part of our partnership with KPCC. This, by my reckoning, is our 8th event together over 3 years, and we have a couple more great ones coming ahead in the Storytellers series after the one tonight. So thank you very much for coming to our first event together for this calendar year. We consider this a great partnership, being a chance to focus on key issues in Southern California, key issues in regards to how Californians live, work, thrive, plan for the future. And one of the key issues for us that we're going to be talking about tonight is transportation. We are dealing with the fact that we are the second largest metropolitan area in the United States with an incredibly stressed and complex transportation system, with incredibly busy highways and streets. And how are we going to go ahead and address the issues, in many ways playing catch up for things that originally were on the drawing boards back in the 1950s, and now we're using modern techniques and technologies, and we are lucky enough to have an expert in Phil Washington who can address a number of these issues. And here we are dealing with one of the world's busiest airports, both in terms of passengers and cargo, with a profound and tremendous impact on our economy and our connections to the world. And we have Deborah Flint, who's come in from Northern California to bring her expertise and guide us into the next phase and what is a great transformation of this tremendously important facility. So for that, I'm going to turn things over to my partner, John Cohn, who's been a tremendous partner at KPCC for us, and we look forward to this evening's program.
Thank you, Kevin. Please. So on behalf of KPCC and Southern California Public Radio, I'd like to welcome you this evening to the Tadeuchi Democracy Forum. Many thanks to Kevin Clouden, Matt Horton, and the rest of the wonderful folks at the Milken Institute. Like we said, this is the first installment of a new series, SoCal Storylines, that we're pretty excited about, taking a forward look at a lot of the regional issues that are obviously very much affecting us now and what the future looks like as we deal with those here in Southern California. By our back-of-the-napkin count, we think this is the 8th event collaboration that the two organizations have done, and we're looking forward to many more. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I also want to take a moment to specifically thank the wonderful folks at the Japanese American National Museum, including Koji Sakai, who makes these types of events possible for us to have here in downtown LA, which we think makes a lot of sense for a lot of the things that we'll be discussing throughout the series, specifically this evening. Like Kevin said, my name is John Cohn. I'm the managing producer of KPCC In Person. KPCC is a multi-platform organization, on air, online, and in person, so we're ever so clever when it comes to naming our platforms. So this is one of the things that we do. We convene around Southern California on a variety of topics and issues in a variety of ways. More of the exciting housekeeping stuff. So if you have a device, we ask that you put it on silent, but we encourage you to use it, social media of your choice. We will be live tweeting using the hashtag SoCal Storylines, and the handles are up there. Please feel free to join us. You're welcome to take photos. We ask that you do that without your flash, and we do ask that you not do video. We will be live video streaming the event, so tell your friends on social media. We will be doing a Q&A towards the end of the program, so think of your questions or your comments now. We ask that you're concise. Raise your hand. A producer with a microphone will come to you, say your name, where you're from, and then kind of get into your question. We'll give as many people as possible to participate. If we don't get to you, or you don't feel like talking in front of a large group of people, we also have our big mic out in the lobby. Feel free to step up, tell us your name, where you're from, any topics or issues that are important to you, and we weave that into our coverage on an ongoing basis, especially as we move towards the November election. So I've spoken way too long, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to KPCC's commuting and mobility reporter, Meghan McCarty.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for coming out to our first SoCal Storylines and taking the time to get here. I'm Meghan McCarty. I cover commuting and mobility for KPCC, and since this is a transportation conversation we're about to have, I thought I would start it off with a little question for all of you. How did you get here this evening? I want to see a show of hands for those who drove alone. Shame, shame, shame. There's no, this is a safe space. I nearly did it myself. Who took rideshare? That's what I did. I'm taking the nonsensible shoe exception. Otherwise, I would have taken Metro. Who took transit? Nice. I would say the majority so far, transit. And did anyone get off an airplane today? Okay, local crowd. All right, so without further ado, I would love to bring out our distinguished guests. First, Phil Washington, the Chief Executive Officer of the Los Angeles Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Phil has been with Metro for just over a year. He came to LA from the Denver Regional Transportation District, where he served for more than a decade and oversaw one of the largest voter-approved transit expansion programs in the country, overseeing now probably the biggest one. Welcome, Phil. And I'd also like to welcome Deborah Flint, Chief Executive Officer of Los Angeles World Airports. Deborah, likewise, has been in LA just over a year, joining us from the Port of Oakland, where she was Director of Aviation and delivered the $480 million BART Airport Rail Project. Welcome to you both. So, like both of you, I mentioned that both of you have been on the job in LA for a little over a year, and I am in the same position. I've been covering transportation for KPCC for a little over a year, and it's been a very exciting year. We've had 2 major rail openings. We've had a lot of rail construction, new bus projects. I covered the beginning of Uber and Lyft picking up at LAX, a highly anticipated story. And one of the things that I have come to realize as I've covered this beat over the last year is just how passionate Angelenos are about transportation. They have no qualms about it's that Saturday Night Live sketch, The Californians, is pretty accurate. You know, people love to talk about how we get around in LA. It's kind of a pastime. And so I went out for one day and just asked people, Angelenos on the street, what they hope for the future of transportation in Los Angeles and what some of their biggest complaints are. And here's what I heard.
There's so much cars, so many people trying to get so many places.
Oh my God, more rail.
Less cars.
They should add more buses. One lane is strictly for the bus.
What's annoying is you have to transfer like 3 trains downtown if you wanted to get on like the express lane.
It takes more time to take the train than it would be to drive.
More subway lane. They don't have traffic.
Maybe something going from the San Fernando Valley over the hill.
It's just getting packed every single day.
I would like to see more scooters. Public transportation, absolutely. Obviously closer to everyone's home.
Okay, so we heard from Angelenos. They like scooters. Not sure if that was in your plans, but I think it might be a worthy.
We can do it.
Very, I think we need to have some Roman holiday kind of added to the Metro ballot measure. They like scooters. They would like rail, preferably to their doorstep. Not sure if you can deliver that, but I would like to hear from you guys, kind of your elevator pitch for what you envision for the future of transportation in LA over the next, say, 50 years, Phil.
I think it's an exciting future. I believe that we are at a crossroads right now in terms of transportation infrastructure investment. Either we do it now or we get eaten alive by congestion. I envision a Los Angeles County in the next 20, 30, 40 years as a balanced transportation system with scooters as well. Balanced in terms of rail, bus, bike, walkability, and where the automobile is not the enemy. I think people start thinking that we need to eliminate all automobiles. No. Automobiles are part of this balanced system. Now, part of our plan is to make sure that there are mobility options, whether that's rail or bus, but also improve the highway system with various programs and technology. So I see a bright future for Los Angeles County. I talk a lot about the transit mode share. Our transit mode share right now is between 8 and 10%. That is the folks that take transit versus other modes. We want to see, and I believe in the next 15 to 20 years, we are going to see a transit mode share of nearly 25%. And that is huge, but I believe that with the proposed build out that we have put forth, we can do that. So I see LA County as being the infrastructure capital of the world. I believe that with what we have put on the table, with a $2 billion football stadium going up, the possibility of the Olympics, this will be the infrastructure capital of the world. And with that comes all kinds of benefits, whether it's transit-oriented communities, 465,000 additional jobs that the LA Economic Development Corps just stated about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think the future is bright if we make the investment.
We'll talk a little bit more about that investment a little bit later, but first I want to ask Deborah, how do you see LAX fitting into the future of transportation in LA, and how do transportation issues figure into the future of LAX?
Well, certainly for people from Los Angeles and those around the world, in order to soar through the friendly skies, in order to be seen if you are celebrity or nearing celebrity on the front doorstep of LAX by none other than TMZ, one has to get to the airport for that experience. And so we're very much anchored in how people access the airport as well. And as I, a year ago, joined LAX and made myself pretty familiar with social media and what people were saying about the experience at LAX, one thing that came very clear is that the experience getting to and from the central terminal area was referred to as something akin to the seventh circle of hell. So knowing that, I said, yes, we absolutely need to move forward in a substantial and exponential way to improve the access. And we have a major development program, over $14 billion of investment that we're making towards the entire airport experience at LAX and to transform it. And LAX is it's a historic airport. Its architecture, its symbols have been seen for decades, and it was revered as the iconic airport, the symbol of the jet age, and all that was possible. And as we today enjoy the largest number of the latest next generation of aircraft, the world's largest passenger aircraft, the A380, and having the most A380 operations of any airport in North America, we need to transform beyond just that experience, but transform the experience to the front door, on the airfield, and up into the skies as well.
Both of your organizations are currently undertaking some of the biggest capital investment projects in the country and in history. We have, massive rail building plans. We have the landside investment for the terminal area, $5.5 billion for that. What are kind of the most exciting things and the biggest challenges of working in this kind of environment, of working in Los Angeles at this moment? And what do each of you bring from your previous experiences to LA? Either jump in.
I'll let the lady go first on this one.
Let's see, the most exciting, there is so much on any given day that it can excite me about LAX. But we are in the throes of a reinvestment in airports in this country, number one. I'm excited for the opportunity to transform the airport. We are the world's 7th largest airport. And we've made great progress. Many of our terminals have been modernized. We have new food and beverage experience, new retail experiences. But we have so much more to go, and I'm excited about the entire travel experience and the opportunities for innovation through technology, wayfinding opportunities, and personalization of the airport experience that passengers have to look forward to. I believe that there will be a day where before you leave your house, your mobile device will help guide you through a seamless travel and transportation choices that are custom suited to you, that you will have an appointment system at the airport for your checkpoint experience, and that experience won't even feel like a checkpoint. It won't be a choke point. It'll be a free-flowing experience where you go through security and it doesn't feel as invasive or intensive as it is. After that experience, your custom latte, chai, mocha, special order, whatever you might want, your meals are ready for you to be picked up, and retail experiences that are tailored exactly to you and what you want are available for you at the airport.
How is your experience at Oakland Airport informing the work that you're doing now at LAX?
There's been a cultural shift in passengers wanting a more guest experience, not just a transportation experience at the airports, and that was something that resonated very clear in our share of, as we strove to get more market in Oakland. Building the BART extension was transformative for the airport. To me, it showed the power of transit and transportation to an airport, what it could do. Not only did it create incredible number of jobs at a time when jobs were really needed during the recession, but it also stimulated the market in and around the airport. The airport traffic increased, but overall ridership in BART increased as well, and I believe that was a stimulating effect caused by the airport extension.
Phil, what do you hope to bring to Metro at this time of momentous change?
Well, let me comment on what I'm excited about. So many things. I think the potential to transform a region through transportation infrastructure investment is incredible. It's incredible. When you look at the landscape of LA County, it's almost like a blank landscape in my mind in terms of transportation infrastructure. I mean, there's people around the country that don't even know we have a subway here. And, you know, I'm originally from Chicago, and, you know, everybody knows about the L train, right? We have an opportunity to transform this region, this city, this county through infrastructure investment. Now, what does that mean? All boats will be lifted with infrastructure investment. Jobs, access to colleges for young people, the mobility of the seniors and the disabled, direct, indirect, and induced jobs, transit-oriented communities that pop up around the transit and transportation infrastructure. We have an opportunity here to really remake transportation and remake the entire county. I defy anyone to identify a great city all through history in the world that did not start with a great transportation system. Whether it was a waterway, whether it was a dam, whether it was a canal, even in this country, the great cities of this country, many of them were created by the Continental Railroad that decided to have a stop in that particular city. And so we have an opportunity. When Deborah and I work a lot together, I mean, it's a crying shame that we don't have a rail connection to our airport. Now, how can we're already a great region and a great county, but how can we go into the next 15, 20 years without a direct link to the airport? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So I'm excited about the opportunity to transform this region. Now, you know, what do I bring? Listen, I think that I spent 25 years in the Army. I saw and studied transportation systems all over the world in various deployments. Was fortunate enough to lead the transportation system in Denver, Colorado, where there was no construction underway in the program there called Fast Tracks. We started construction on that program, and they're opening up 5 projects this year, including the line from Denver International Airport to the downtown area. Actually, that airport is in Kansas. It's so far east. But yeah, so bringing that, and it's never just one person. We're talking, we need to build a team, which we're doing at Metro. The partners that we have at LAX and Deborah's team, and the partners that we have at Caltrans, and also the federal government, the Federal Transportation or Transit Agency and USDOT. All of this must come together, but we have to make the first investment, and we have done that. This region has proved that, and so if we continue to make those investments, then we can leverage dollars elsewhere to build even more than what is in our current plan.
You mentioned rail to LAX. This is obviously a hugely symbolic and important aspect of Metro's plans and of LAX's plans, both the rail connection and the people mover connecting to the airport. But I'm curious how big of an impact you think it can have on the congestion level at LAX, given that ridership projections are not out of this world. It's a light rail connection. It will take a long time. There will be transfers from many, central areas of Los Angeles. I believe I saw a figure in a Metro staff report that projected only, 1 to 2% of passengers arriving at LAX would do so by rail. So, how significant do you think this will be in mitigating some of those congestion issues at the terminal at LAX?
Let me start first and talk about the impacts at LAX first specifically. Number one, we are one of the global dominant airports. And so the international passengers coming from Asia, coming from Europe, expect to be able to get off that plane, seamlessly get through customs, and walk out the front door and use rail and transit to be able to access the city. It's an expectation of a global top airport. The other is that it is, Phil talked about some matters just being ridiculous, and it is inconceivable to me almost that, again, as the highly ranked airport that we are, that we don't have a consolidated rental-car facility. And our APM is going to connect to a rental-car facility. Today, there are over 30 different rental-car operations spread all around the neighborhoods surrounding the airport. When the APM opens, 20% of the vehicle traffic will immediately disappear because the shuttles that are in the central terminal area will no longer be needed. So at minimum, a 20% congestion relief factor. It will actually be higher, in my opinion, in regards to vehicles. And from my experience at Oakland, other experiences of airports, when they are connected to rail, there is a stimulating effect that also generates additional ridership.
I think what I would add is when we look at the potential ridership going to the airport, first of all, let me say, what were you doing reading one of our staff reports? You actually read one of those staff reports. I didn't read that one.
It was from before your tenure. It was from 2014.
All right. Well, we're gonna make
I dug way back there.
Make sure we get rid of that staff report that said 1 or 2%. I think it's going to be a lot more than that. I think. When you look at ridership projections, you look out 30 years. But I think we have to keep in mind the mobility patterns of people now, especially millennials. I think, and we're looking at 5-10 years from now when, or less, when that connection will occur. And I think when that connection will occur, the travel patterns, especially of younger people and even some senior people, will change. And if the quality of service that we provide is such that people will take that rail line to the airport, I think that's a big, big piece. and they understand when it's coming, where it's at, I mean, the convenience of it and all of that. So I think that when we look at the ridership expectations of a line to the airport, if you look around the country at rail lines that have just, over the last 10, 15 years, I think you will see all of them have exceeded ridership projections with that connection to the airport. And I think that is factual. So I think we will see great interest in a line like that. And I just believe it will happen. I don't believe it'll be 1 or 2%. I think it'll be a lot more.
Well, speaking of ridership and projections and hoping that it will be more than that, I've spoken to you a lot this year about ridership issues, as is the case in the rest of the country. Ridership on metro buses and trains has been going down over the last year and a half. And given the investment that Metro hopes to make with this ballot measure on the November ballot to increase sales tax, to pay for new rail projects, highway projects, and to sustain the system that we have, what are your expectations for increasing or sustaining ridership? You know, do you think if you build it, they will come, or are there clearly there are other factors that go into transit ridership that a transit agency can't control? And how do you deal with some of those things like, you know, land use, development around stations, or the price of gas?
Right. Well, yeah, I think that, first of all, ridership decreases and increases are cyclical. They are cyclical. You know, the price of gas goes down. You know, there's a direct correlation with ridership. Price of gas goes up, there's, likely an increase. There's all kinds of factors that go into ridership increases and decreases. Now, we are looking at that nationwide. Bus ridership is slightly down. And so we're following that trend, if you will. So LA County and Metro ridership on the bus side is slightly down. On rail, we're going through the roof. And the audience has read articles about cars and not enough rail vehicles and all of that. We can get into that later. That's another one of those deals. But ridership, again, is cyclical. We have a campaign underway right now to do a couple of things. One, retain our riders. Two, recruit riders. And also make the customer experience very, very good. And so we are looking at that. We're also looking at where our buses are going. One of the things transit agencies need to do is look at the entire system frequently. We look at it twice a year. Are buses going to where they should go? We know employment patterns and travel patterns change, and so we have to do a very good job of making sure that we're going to the right places. We have to understand where the new employment center is, where the new mall is, where the new this. Universal Studios is a great example. Harry Potter just opened. We increased service out there in that area when Harry Potter opened. And so we'll continue to do that. But what I think you will see as seniors age in place and as students look to ride transit all over the county, I think what you'll see is big time increases both on the bus and even more on the rail side.
Rail projects are definitely sexier than bus projects, and there are some very enticing projects on the list on the ballot measure: the Sepulveda Pass Tunnel, the Gold Line extension to Claremont, the Purple Line subway, speeding that up. But do you think that in order for Angelenos to really get on board rail and transit in general, there needs to be more done to make buses sexier, or to get Angelenos on the bus?
Yeah, most definitely. But keep in mind that most of our ridership, we carry 1.4 million people a day, and about 75-80% of them are on the bus now. I mean, that's a huge number. We do need to make it sexier, okay?
I mean, I don't know how sexy you want a bus to be, but
But you know, it's all about the customer experience.
Yeah.
I think we have to make the customer experience a pleasant one. I mean, we want to be on time with our buses. If we say we track our on-time performance, when we say we're going to be at a stop, we need to be there. We need to look at Wi-Fi on buses now. We need to look at all of these things. It's about the customer experience, safety, security, all of those are our bus stops the ones that we maintain, because we don't maintain all of them.
Right.
The ones that we maintain, are they clean? I mean, so this is about the customer experience and people getting on the bus and knowing they can go to where they need to go.
Deborah, how big of a role do you think buses will play for LAX in the future?
At LAX, it's all about having choice of ways to access the airport. So from rideshare to buses to the APM, which will connect to the Metro Rail, taxis, just the freedom of choice and the frequency of choice is what's most key. Passengers want an efficient, reliable, and certain experience. We know that air travel is extremely stressful. We're looking to improve that experience and give more certainty and to decrease the stress that's associated with air travel.
Looking at the history of big transportation and infrastructure projects, one of the perennial challenges, and one that I think a lot of people would argue hasn't been met very well in history, is how to keep equity a part of the picture. I know both of you are, have a lot of experience with this and are very invested in making choices that not only increase mobility, but also increase equity for all the communities, and for particularly the communities that are your neighbors. Deborah, can you tell me a little bit about how environmental justice issues and development issues factor into the plans for the future of LAX?
Certainly, it's something I love to talk about. It is so true that airports are significant economic generators, and that's an important attribute, but it's also an important responsibility. Because the reality is no matter how hard we try, and we will continue to endeavor to reduce and minimize impacts that come from having a major airport surrounded by neighborhoods, but there are indeed impacts. And we feel very strongly that those that have impacts, we ought to also ensure that they very clearly and directly understand the benefit of having an airport like LAX or Van Nuys as part of their community. So being good neighbors is critically important. That comes from recognizing that a number of the people that live in the neighborhoods actually work at the airport. And so it's not lost on me that the easier we make it for people to get to the airport is the better job satisfaction they have, the better livelihood they have. And so the Landside Access Modernization Program is a key element to the 40,000 workers that are employed on a daily basis at LAX. We've also, as we develop the LAMP program, Megan, you talked about it was a $5 billion program. That's a tremendous opportunity. Yes, billions of dollars are being invested in infrastructure, but it's rare for us to have this opportunity where we're investing $5 billion in one program. That is the time that we can harness the economic power of the airport to say, not only are we going to build a great project, build it on budget, build it on time, build it with the most innovation, but we're also going to build it with values that reflect the importance of the community, local small business, local small businesses, and local workforce development, all being part of how we go about selecting who we're going to partner and work with on these major programs.
And Phil, I know transit-oriented development, or transit-oriented communities, as you call them, has been a big issue with you, and the issue of gentrification around train lines. Can you talk a bit about how Metro, and under your stewardship, is working to make sure that these projects benefit everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about transforming communities through transportation infrastructure investment, and that means communities that are near transit lines and bus lines. It is so important. What we see in many of the cities where they are building new transportation infrastructure is somehow the communities around that investment go away. You know, you can call it displacement, you can call it gentrification, whatever it is. You've got a transportation or a transit asset that's in the community, and all of a sudden, the people that you did the environmental work on or with early in the project, by the time you finish construction, it's a whole different community. And so I think it's important, and what I stress is that, and we can't control all of this, obviously, as the agency, but we don't want to displace communities, right? It impacts my bottom line. Now, the traditionalists, the transportation and transit traditionalists, will disagree with me. I had one transportation traditionalist, I'll call him, a seasoned individual, who argued that, Phil, we are the T in transit-oriented development. We should only be worried about the T, which is transit, and we should not be concerned with the communities around the investment. I could not disagree more. We need to be concerned about the communities around our transportation asset. It impacts my bottom line because many times those communities are disadvantaged and they are transit dependent. And the further we move them, or the further they are moved outside of the city core or away from the city core, where usually the transportation is, the further they're pushed out, I have to put transportation out there to meet their needs. And so that is a bus or a train that has to go out to meet those. So that impacts my bottom line. And so we need to look at that 2-mile radius around a transit station. We need to look at how we can make it easier for people that live around there to stay there. And so the LA Metro Board, not long ago, said that the property that we own adjacent to any station, if it is being looked at for development, that at least 35% or 35% of it must be affordable housing. Now that's a big thing. I can't think of any other transportation agency that has done that in this country. And so we need to be concerned about it. We need to be concerned about displacement. We need to be concerned about gentrification, which oftentimes are communities of color. We need to be concerned about that. And in our proposed ballot measure, we're looking at those things. There is a slice in that ballot measure that looks at keeping fares low for seniors and disabled and military veterans and students. And so we need to be concerned about the community as we transform these various communities around the county.
Speaking of the ballot measure, what happens to the vision that you expressed if it does not get 2/3 of LA County voters' support? What kind of a situation are we in then? What kind of possibilities to complete some of the projects exist? Are we going to be in a DC type situation with state of good repair down the line?
Well, I like to answer it the other way, when it passes.
All right.
It's a legitimate question, but let me go to when it passes, because okay. I mean, what we're talking about is an additional 1/2 cent sales tax, an additional 1/2 cent, and then also extending the current measure or 1/2 cent, extending that. And so what that generates over a 40-year period, 40, 50-year period, is about $120 billion. Now, we've listed a lot of projects, and we didn't sit in the headquarters building and just dictate what projects these were. We went out to the sub-regions, the Council of Governments, And we asked them, all 9 of them, we asked them to identify and prioritize their own capital projects in their regions. They did that. We evaluated them based on a set of criteria. We sequenced the projects when they would be built and all of those things. So people talk about the projects, but there's much more in this measure. There is a component in the measure called local return, where we give money back to all 88 cities in the county so they can do their local streets, potholes, all those things. So of that $120 billion that I just talked about that will be generated, we're giving back about $22 billion back to the cities to do their own. And we got a state of good repair piece, all of those things. So this is truly lifting all boats, and I mentioned the 465,000 jobs that will be created. The doomsday question she asked. Listen, we are at a crossroads right now as it relates to transportation infrastructure investment. Our infrastructure, we've been on an infrastructure vacation for the last 3 decades, really. When you look at the pipes in Flint, Michigan, and you look at the deteriorating transportation systems in Chicago and New York, these things are breaking down. If it does not pass, I don't want to think, we have to do some Houdini math or some serious thinking about how we address the infrastructure and mobility issues. We're talking about adding 2.3 million additional people in this county in the next 15 to 20 years. It's going to be incredible. So I don't like to think about it, but it ain't a pretty picture.
Deborah, I want to ask you about how LAX is poised to accommodate growth. I know recently there was an agreement reached that could allow LAX to increase traffic, increase passenger flights. How will that work? And given what we've talked about with the congestion issues and the issues in the terminal, what will that look like?
Sure. There's such a key theme about the delay in the investment of the infrastructure and the pain that it causes. And I just want to comment as well from an airport and aviation industry perspective, because it is the same situation with our nation's airports. Many of us, we're very competitive in the industry, and so there was a bit of a chuckle when Vice President Biden talked about LaGuardia being a third world airport, and he couldn't distinguish it during his experience there. That is a really sad state of affairs for the aviation industry, an industry that in this country it should be regaled. We should be the leaders in all aspects. When we think about the rankings of U.S. airports, it's very telling. Because not only is LAX, from our ranking, again, the 7th largest airport in the world, but by Skytrax rated 91st, and there are not many other U.S. airports, frankly, ahead of us. That's a problem. We rely as an industry, and airports do, separate from airlines, on funding known as a passenger facility charge. That passenger facility charge today is worth half of the buying power of when it was first legislated. And that is the funding that airports use to help make sure that airports have capacity. That capacity is important so that airline competition can exist and airports are not held hostage to 1 or 2 carriers, but there's ample and robust competition that brings lots of flights and lots of competitive fares to the communities that they serve. So it's a very similar story about the need for not just LAX, but the airport industry in this country to be modernized and to have that investment in infrastructure. It was very good that a few months ago, there was actually a bipartisan agreement to extend the FAA reauthorization. The last time the bill expired, it took over 20 different extensions to get to a bill, a long-term bill. This time there is a short-term bill in effect, which will carry us forward the next year and a half or so. But these issues are critical today. The pain when we defer investing in infrastructure in our airports, similar to what Phil is talking about, by a year delay or 2-year delay, is incredibly painful. Speaking back to LaGuardia, they are now moving forward on their development program. And it was reported that because that development program is so delayed, they're now building, passengers had to get off a bus a mile away from the airport and walk into the airport with their luggage. I mean, that is failure. And so our concern also carries forward here at LAX, that now is the time. We've had an incredible growth rate. We have a very small footprint of an airport, so we need to be highly efficient. So developing the landside access modernization program today is not about building for the future. It's about solving problems that are inherently fundamental that we need to get solved today.
And where does this decade-old plan to move one of the runways to possibly, increase passenger traffic, where does that stand right now?
Sure. So tomorrow the City Council will be considering a settlement agreement that our Board of Airport Commissioners has already approved. And that settlement agreement was with a community group that is formed adjacent to the airport, the Westchester community. It's RSAC. So this is an incredible settlement agreement that poises us to move forward. It clears the way for the airport relative to this group to no longer face litigation relative to building the landside access modernization program, to building gates within a designated area. That is another pain point many of you have maybe experienced for yourself, or you've seen the other latest ranking from Milecards, which said we are now the airport that has the longest travel time from the time a plane lands to the time it docks at a gate. That's not the award or the ranking that we want to have, of course. And then thirdly, to your point, it clears the way for us to make safety and efficiency enhancements on the North Air side, before we look to relocating a runway. It doesn't preclude us from relocating the runway. That may be an eventuality, but there are efficiency improvements that are important for us to do today. And it now creates a forum of trust and understanding for us to move forward on those improvements.
So for my last question, I want to take a look at a speculative future. Just in my reporting over the last year, I've seen the disruption of rideshare and other things happening. So I'm curious, for each of you, what are the big kind of unknowns that you are watching in terms of, say, autonomous vehicles or the Hyperloop or the 2024 Olympics that could be on the horizon that could change what you do?
Well, we don't know what we don't know. I think, we have to be prepared for this innovation. We set up an office of what I call extraordinary innovation, just for this reason, and that is to understand innovation and implement it. And I told the gentleman that we brought in to run that office, listen, you can research stuff, but I want you to implement innovation. There's a difference when you talk about implementing innovation. So we put together an unsolicited proposal policy to say that the private sector can come to us with their ideas, and they don't have to just wait for a request for proposal to go on the street. This unsolicited proposal policy says they can bring their ideas to us. The public sector and public organizations like ours have become so prescriptive in their design specifications that we stifle the private sector's innovation. We must leave this open and allow creativity from the private sector and accept private sector creativity and innovation. Right now, and that's what Deborah's doing with her big project. And that's what we have done as well. And so we are not afraid of autonomous vehicles. And we see that as part of the balanced transportation system. I think if we allow that innovation in our solicitations and really welcome innovation, and it's not just me. I mean, I've got to instill this innovative culture all the way down into the organization, because I can say it all day long, but you always have one guy or lady that has an office 3 levels below the surface with no window, who thinks their job is just to say no. I got to get rid of that person. And so if you're really going to embrace innovation, and so we're searching that person out to get rid of them, to make sure that we create a culture of innovation. And so that's very important.
Deborah, what kind of innovations do you see as possibly changing the way LAX works in the future?
Yeah, I'm very excited because our focus is changing the guest experience. Again, creating an experience where the airport does not feel so daunting, so untenable, so uncertain. And so innovation is going to play a huge role in being able to provide that certainty, that cultivated, personalized experience for the air travel of the future. And there's no better place for it to take hold than at LAX.
What are you guys thinking about a potential 2024 Olympics? How will that affect the work of LAX and Metro?
I'm excited about it. You know, I at one time held my high school's track record. And since that was about the extent of my running, you know, even though I had Olympic dreams, you know, anything to get me close to, you know, the Olympics is going to be a good thing. I'm excited about it. So 2024, if I can hold an Olympic flag and say, well, we won the airport competition at Olympics, that will check off a dream for me. Again, everything that we are doing at the airport is necessary today. It was really essential yesterday. But let's be real, it's very difficult to move multi-billion-dollar public agency projects in the city and in this country and around the industry. So the convening power, the momentum that coming together to build and be ready for the Olympics brings a powerful tool, and using that to continue the progress that we have made. Our plan set forth for us to complete our rail, our APM system, and the consolidated rent-a-car facility by 2023.
Yeah, we're excited about it. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. It's part of the infrastructure capital of the world thing that I always talk about. It's less than 10 years from now. It's 8 years from now, right? We have the projects that are needed in this plan. I mean, we got to do the connection to the airport. We are building the Purple Line out to the VA hospital and to UCLA. That is where many of the venues for the Olympics will be. We're building that now. Now, we need this measure to pass in order to finish it up. But we have these projects in our plan now all over the county, because it's not just one place. This is something that has to happen all over the county. I mean, just imagine the job creation and the creation even of a new middle class by just building this system. It's pretty incredible. I think it's going to happen. I think, you know, we have one football team here with a $2 billion stadium. We have the possibility to have 2 losing football teams here in Southern California. I think another one is coming.
All right, we'll now move to audience questions. If you raise your hand, one of our in-person staff will come to you with a microphone. And if you can just state your name and where you're from before you ask a question.
T. Walters, local. Yeah, it's too close. This plays off of the question of rail being sexy, buses not being sexy, but buses being flexible enough in the ability to change their routes and go to where people want to go, because we cannot always predict where people are going to be working or what they want to do. And also to the rapid coming of autonomous vehicles. I believe that autonomous vehicles are not just going to be private vehicles, but they are eventually going to be all vehicles. And what I wanted to know was, do you foresee any system of mini buses? Because then there wouldn't have to be, eventually there wouldn't be drivers being paid. So do you foresee any possibility of mini buses that come with extremely high frequency instead of the accordion buses that when we leave, those of us who raised our hand to say that we're on public transportation, when we leave here, those accordion buses will be running only every half an hour, where mini buses that are autonomous could run with very high frequency.
Right. No, I do see that. I do see, and it's in the not too distant future that I see that. I see autonomous larger buses too. I see that coming. We want to be ready for that innovation. And that is, again, one of the reasons we set up that office, to be ready for that innovation. I think those things will be here within the next 8 years or so, 6 to 8 years. I think you're going to see, and probably sooner, you're going to see autonomous 40-foot buses out there that are carrying folks. And so I see that coming, yes, and we will embrace it.
I actually have a question for each one of you. Should I say them both at the same time or one at a time?
Say them all at the same time.
I'll say both, okay. So my question for you, Phil, I pay for my Starbucks with my phone. I pay for my Uber with my phone. But it seems like mass transit here is so far behind the times. I have to make sure I have my tap card, and then my tap card doesn't work on the what is it called, the dash bus, and then it's like, and it just frustrates me all the time. And then I tried to go get a bike the other day, and that didn't work because it wasn't part of the tap system. How can we get it so that you guys are not following the trend 10 years later, but on the trend? And then I also have a question about the airport. Traveling around the world, you know, there's a lot of monorails that go to the airport. Can we, for security and for just ease, can we get away from the airport and have a place where we can all just hop on a monorail and we all just get off at and nobody has to park at the terminal or wait for a bus, or it's so it's so uncomfortable getting to the terminal, and that's what you said before.
All right, I'll start with that. So the Landside Access Modernization Program that I talked about, the $5 billion that we're actually underway with a procurement process for, includes what's known as an automated people mover, and that is essentially a monorail, light rail system that connects the airport, 3 on-airport stations, 3 off-airport stations. 1 connects to Phil's metro station, the other 2 consolidated rent-a-car facility, and then some intermediate garages. The approach that we're using is actually partnering with the private sector to bring about not just the best rail system for the airport, but the best passenger amenities that could include remote check-in, a high level of speed and certainty, very quick frequencies, 2-minute turns for the trains to meet each of the stations. So your experience when we build that project and have it installed operational by 2023 is going to be very similar to what you've seen and experienced at airports across the world.
In terms of the technology, one of the things since we set up this innovation office, we've received some 35 unsolicited proposals. These are ideas from the private sector. And one of them is exactly what you're talking about. Now, this technology is out there, we know that. One of the frustrations is what I mentioned earlier, is that in the public domain, we have gotten so prescriptive. If you read we tell the private sector everything. We tell them, how tight to turn a screw, everything. What we're trying to do is allow that creativity. And so we have unsolicited proposals in-house now to talk about how we can move towards that open source technology, that type of technology on phones and all of that. We're so far behind the power curve. I think we're going to be the first transit agency to do that. We have dedicated funding for technology in this new measure right now. We're going to be pursuing that. I think you're going to see that in the next probably a year or so.
Hi, Patrick Chandler, South Pasadena. Metro has become a lot more involved with freeways, whereas Caltrans is kind of taking a back door because of a change of legislation and policy. So what does Metro have in store? I mean, there's express lanes on 110 and the 10. What do you have in store to deal with increasing capacity on our freeway system? And also, through the fact that Caltrans was so car-driven for the airports, how are you working with them to change their culture where it's not so car-driven?
Well, let me say in this measure that I talked about, if you can envision a expenditure pie, a round expenditure pie, and you got slices and everything, 17% of the funds we will generate is towards highway and dedicated to highway. When I first came out here, and I've been out here before, I saw the merges on some of these. I thought, wow, this merge is like 10 feet or something. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I mean, and so that causes a lot of the congestion and the accidents. And so many of the things and the projects that we have in this measure gets to those things. It gets to either technology through programs or actual physical construction in bettering and in improving intersections and merges just like that. And so we have that dedicated in this measure to fix those things, which I think will alleviate so much congestion on the highways. And we're working with Caltrans because at the end of the day, it's still their road and it's still their highway. I mean, we're funding all of these things, but obviously we have to work with them on that. In terms of the congestion for the airport, I might have Deborah pick up on that one. But I think one of the things with this direct connection, if it's rail to the airport, you're going to see a big reduction of vehicles, and that's going to improve congestion as well.
Hi, my name is Maria Maharic, and I live in one of the beach cities nearby. But I'm also one of the city employees near the LAX. And I have a comment and a question. I do want to commend LAWA for coming to our jurisdiction and speaking to my traffic engineers and to our planning department and answering all the questions that we had so we can take to our community in regards to the landside development and the traffic congestion that we currently have and might be relieved once that is done. So thank you for that. Mr. Washington, I do have a question for you, and it has to do with the expansion or more development of rail and bus lines, etc. Given that we have seen a lot of congestion on the freeways, do you find that the communities nearby where this is occurring are more open to this infrastructure, or are you getting a little bit more pushback, or is it easier?
No, this has been so easy. Actually, it really has. Communities, we take the community concerns very, very seriously. This is, on the Crenshaw line, we created a business interruption fund. Now, there's only one other transit agency that I know of in the country that's done that. And this is to say that if you're a small business, we know we have interrupted your livelihood, and so if you're directly impacted, we give you money. Now, there's some things you have to turn in and improve about your revenue and all of that kind of thing. But, you know, you're always going to have some challenges when you build infrastructure. And so we do have those challenges with various communities. You know, you've been reading about the line we're building out west to UCLA and the community out there. And so we deal with those things, but we live in a society where we have to do a lot of different processes to build projects. You know, we don't live in a third world country where there's no environmental process and the dictator comes in and says, I want this whole community out of here. We're about to build the pyramids. So we have to deal with those community issues, and we do the best that we can. And at the end of the day, they show up at the grand opening and want to speak too.
So quickly in between, I have a question that was submitted via Twitter from Investing in Place. They said, lots of talk on transit ridership decline. Why aren't we also talking about walking and biking deaths increasing? Phil, can you talk a little bit about Metro's interest in walking and biking and active transportation issues? And I'm sure, obviously, not a lot of people biking at LAX, but there are a lot of people walking and walking safety issues in the terminal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is very, very important to us, this whole area of active transportation. I mean, we have dedicated a slice of this funding in our plan for active transportation. Bikeways, we're looking to build and rebuild the entire LA River Riverwalk or bike path. I mean, that's 51 miles that's in this plan. And so for the life of the measure, the first 40 years or so, there's like $2.5, almost $3 billion for active transportation. And so when we talk about building a balanced transportation system, the bike is part of that balanced transportation system. In terms of walkability, these funds that we are giving back to the 88 cities called local return. So if you see that term, local return, you know what that is. We are doing 17% of that expenditure pie back to the cities, over $20 billion, to do their sidewalks and their streets and their potholes. We are giving them that money to do that. And the amount of money that each city gets is based on their population and employment and those sorts of things. But the walkability, I mean, we've seen articles in the paper about sidewalks that's buckling and all over the place. That is what that money is going back to the cities to do.
So walking at the airport, I want you to walk through the airport and make stops at all the different shops and restaurants and enjoy that part of the experience. And we are actually investing in that, whether it's inside the terminals. One of the things that has plagued us is the fact that we're actually 9 separate unit terminals. And once you go into one terminal, people have felt somewhat hostage that you can't get out into the other terminals and experience all the great things we have to offer. And as we've redeveloped the airport, we now have a number of brand new access points that allow essentially the entire south terminal concourses to all be accessed post-security. So we built some incredible connections that now connect. If you're flying domestic on any one of the other terminals, Terminal 5, 6, 7, or 8, you can actually still access the Tom Bradley International Terminal and partake in what is indeed one of the most stellar terminals at LAX. And also, I mean, I think it's also important to note that with our landside program and the APM, there are absolutely going to be bike and walkable paths that are part of that project. So we see that as connected to what Phil and Metro is doing, and we'll continue that into the airport access as well.
Hi, Chris from Pasadena. So, Mr. Washington, looking at the sales tax recommendation that you're making for your ballot measure, if the goal is to increase ridership, isn't it a fairly naive approach to go for a blanket sales tax as opposed to something targeted towards fuel consumption to help drive people towards public transportation?
Well, that's one of those technical questions that I was hoping I didn't get hit with tonight. Yeah, it may be, but I think with the successful passage of this sales tax measure, we can look at a number of different things to reduce fuel consumption and all of that. So I think when we talk about this measure lifting all boats and being able to try various things, I think we can do that all within this measure. And I think it's all around innovation, and it's all around our willingness to try different technologies and even try different funding mechanisms. I think we can also do that. We can leverage, you know, if we win this, we can leverage our funding against various grants that come out in those areas as well to implement new technology. So I think we can do it with this measure, but we're down the road with the sales tax piece.
Hi, Rishi Verma, Pasadena. My question has. Yeah, Rishi Verma. My name. I'm from Pasadena. My question had to do with greenhouse gas emissions. So basically, I was curious with respect to the plan that you, Mr. Washington, you had talked about. Are greenhouse gas emissions for the different modes of transportation being accounted for in the plan in terms of reducing Los Angeles County's impact? And also, I think more specifically, you know, if you look at the greenhouse gas emissions for automobiles, it's on the kilogram level. When you start going 5, 10, or more miles, Metro Rail is less than that. Active transportation is obviously much, much less.
Mm-hmm.
So are there also options that are being considered for incentivizing low greenhouse gas emission modes of transportation for that particular reason?
I can't say that that is in this measure, but obviously the projects that we are proposing will reduce greenhouse gases drastically. When you look at, we will be going from just over 100 miles of rail, doubling that with this plan to something like 225 or so. That is going to reduce greenhouse gases quite a bit. We have a 2,000 fleet, 2,000 bus fleet, 2,000 CNG, clean natural gas bus fleet. So we don't have any diesel buses out here. That is a huge piece. We have the largest CNG fleet in the country right now, of any transit agency. So I think what you'll see is a great reduction. We need to track that though, and we will begin to track that in this measure, but we don't have any stats on it right now. We know it's going to be reduced greatly though.
Hi, Michael Banner from Los Angeles via Westchester, where I live, near the airport for 35 years. You're talking about spending a lot of money, billions. How are you looking at what stays local so we get this spin-off effect? Because the economy in LA is okay, but it's still a lot of people that are stressed. And I know both your organizations have a concerted effort about doing things in small business. Can you share with us a little bit how some of this billions is going to stick locally?
Sure, that is so critically important. Again, that the workforce that is going to be employed, the hundreds of thousands of jobs that will be generated because of the programs at LAX alone, that we ensure that those jobs there are opportunities that are created for the local workforce as well as for local and small businesses. In this procurement method that I talked about, the partnership with the private sector, this has been done in other agencies across the country. It's the first time for Los Angeles, but I will say that this is the first time for any agency that there has been an inclusion of points towards their plan to include local and small businesses as part of their teaming and their approach to the project. The very first time for any other project that at the RFQ statement of qualification stage that we have actually valued that. So to even participate in this process from the beginning, we're saying you have to show up and show that you are going to work with the community, invest your time, your effort, and that our expenditures are going to have an impact back here around the community.
And I'll just add to that. You know, when you talk about the money that will be injected into this economy, there's already been studies. Just about 2 weeks ago, there was a study talking about the first 30 years of this Measure M, this proposed measure, would generate about $79 billion into the local economy, and that was just the projects. That's not talking about the local return with all the projects that the local cities will do. We have a local hire program. This local hire program says that contractors have to hire from the local community. That's great. We have a car manufacturing place, Kinky Sherry, up in Lancaster, or Palmdale. You know, and that was insisted on by the Metro Board to have that plant there. Otherwise, these trains would have been made, you know, overseas somewhere. So that is very, very important to us, that the dollars be injected into the local economy. When you talk about small and minority and women-owned and veteran-owned businesses, what we have been very clear about is we demand exceeding the goal. It's not enough just to meet the goal anymore. You will exceed the goal, and there's no such thing as good faith efforts. Those are out the door. You know, you don't meet the goal and you say you made a good faith effort. It's ridiculous. You will meet the goal, and as a matter of fact, we want small businesses to prime contracts and the large companies sub to them. That is what we're talking about. You work for Metro? Oh, okay. No, I'm glad you're here. No, you're promoted, man.
We're always talking about Japan, and we've been on the railroad system in Japan. We're always talking about transportation. You've been talking about innovation. Has there been any conversations about Japan, or like talking to people, rail authorities in Japan, or is there space for future dialogue with people who work in Japan on the rail?
Absolutely. Listen, when we created this Office of Extraordinary Innovation, you know, I was dreaming about that name. I put that name, Extraordinary. I had somebody come to me and say, Phil, why don't you just call it the Office of Innovation? You know, don't use it. Like, you missed the whole point, man. I mean, extraordinary innovation. When we set up that office, there were a number of articles that went out. We got calls from all over the world about that office. I mean, in emails about what is this and how can we enter into a dialogue. It was incredible, really, because it made all these national publications and international publications. So absolutely, we're looking to work with Japan. Are you angling for a trip for him to go to Japan? Oh.
We were talking about like different events that we could do.
Absolutely.
We do a lot of events, and we're thinking, oh, it'd be really cool if we had.
I love it. And a delegation has been here already from Japan. We met with them.
Hi, my name is Dan Shapiro. I live in East Hollywood. I think there's been a lot that's been said about induced demand and how that plays into personal transportation. For instance, when we build the 405 bigger, and rather than an increased capacity, it just increases demand. Is there any consideration for that principle playing into public transportation and how we could increase density of transportation and induce demand that way?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're open to looking at anything and trying anything. You're right. You know, once you increase capacity, somehow those lanes fill up. You know what I mean? So the more you build, the more, I think you have to really, when you talk about transit, that mode share thing I was talking about earlier, this idea of mode share, what percentage, are people taking transit highway? We have to increase that transit mode share. We have to increase that if we are to survive in this county when it comes to congestion. We have to do it. With so many more millions of people coming here, we're not going to be able to survive. And so that 8 to 10% transit mode share, we got to get it up to 20, 25% in the next 10, 15 years. That's going to be very, very important.
How do you educate Angelenos about the effects of induced demand and why it may not be the case that you increase capacity, you build a rail to Santa Monica, and there's still the same amount of traffic on the freeway potentially? And during a time when you're trying to get Angelenos to vote for a ballot measure.
Well, I kind of look at it differently, right? I mean, if all the people on the train was on the road, you know what I'm saying? I mean, how much worse would it be? So I look at it that way.
It could be worse.
Yeah, it would be horrible. So yes, we have to improve the highway system. Some people are going to drive their car, but maybe we don't get the person, the person that would normally drive 20 miles downtown. Maybe we can get them to drive their car 3 miles to the park and ride and then get on the train. Balanced system. They're still using their automobile, but they're using a bus or a train to go the rest of the way. That is what we have to do. And I think we're going to get there with younger people not wanting to drive. We see car ownership in some areas are actually going down. So I think, we're looking out over a number of years, and I think the future is going to be a lot brighter in terms of people using transit.
Charlie Wu, this is Ms. Flint. What is the role of the regional airports in terms of expanding LAX activities, such as Burbank, Ontario, Long Beach? And because LAX is the hub of many international flights, and not the destination, how do you overcome that need for connecting flights all in one place?
Sure, it's quite interesting in that LAX is actually the country's largest origin and destination airport. So while we're ranked third in overall passenger volume, and many people hear that Atlanta Airport is the world's largest airport, one of the reasons why is because they have such a high amount of connecting passengers. So those passengers don't actually leave the airport and go into the community and spend dollars in tourism or investment. They simply pass through. Whereas it's very different for LAX. LAX, again, the passengers that we have, what will ultimately possibly be almost 80 million passengers this year, are those that they're mostly coming to Los Angeles and to the surrounding areas, and they're investing. We got $8 billion worth of economic impact from the international passenger alone, and that was the 2015 metric. So we have a very robust role in the international passenger market. It's a market-based decision where airlines are going to fly. They're going to fly where they see the best routes, the best yields, the best productivity, the best opportunity for them to fill up their planes at the highest price point. It's very difficult for airports to be in a controlled position over that. It is indeed a free market. But what we do is work collaboratively with the airports, with Ontario Airport, who is today part of Los Angeles World Airports, but we've signed an agreement for them to become an independent airport authority, and that will be happening before the end of the year. But the surrounding airports as well. My industry happens to be one that enjoys actually a lot of competition, but at the same time, a lot of cooperation. And so we support the idea that traffic will be dispersed and growth will be occurring not just at LAX, but in the surrounding airports in the region.
Just want to give you a heads up, this is going to be the last question. I'm not sure about the guests, but I will definitely be around afterwards if people have questions that they didn't get to address. I'm sure if you guys are going to mill around, but...
Matthew Fitzgerald from Lincoln Heights. Very quickly, you promised to tell us about those trains the longer trains so that we don't have to cram in during the rush hours. You said there was more trains coming.
Oh, right.
And we've been promised those, and it's always been on the brink, but it hasn't happened yet.
Right. So we have a firm that they're manufacturing the trains up in Palmdale, and it's a firm called Kinky Sherrio that makes the light rail trains. We are putting out 4 per month right now. I mean, it takes, it takes a little bit to, create one of these trains. We're putting out 4 per month. We're trying to get to 5 per month. Once we receive them, we have to commission them, test them, and all those things, and we're putting them right on the expo line and the gold line. We're putting them right on the line after we do our testing. So you're going to see, some relief very, very soon as we put those out right now. We're commissioning, I believe, 13 of them right now, 13 more right now. So you're going to see a lot of relief. And we're going to go on the expo line from 12-minute frequency down to 6-minute frequency. So you're going to see big relief there. So you're going to see 3-car trains, more of them, because we got some out there now during the peak as well. You're going to see more of them and then a higher frequency from 12 to 6.
All right, I'm sorry, those are all the questions that we have time for tonight. But before I let you guys go, I have one final note that I want to end on. This is a series, SoCal Storylines, Conversations with Movers and Shakers, of which you are both. So I just want to ask you about your leadership roles and how you conceive of being a leader and what your biggest challenges are.
Well, you talk about being movers and shakers. My testament to my staff is keep it moving. Right? We have got to keep going. We've got to work together. I am a very strong proponent of collaboration. Collaboration and transparency is key, both inside the organization as well as externally. There is progress. I think the recent settlement agreement is a testament that when we work collaboratively with our stakeholders and come together as an organization, all things are possible. This is an extremely exciting time for LAX. For those of you that travel, whether it's frequently or infrequently, I want you to be excited about the future. There are still some pain points today, but we are working on those, and we have a plan forward that is going to deliver to this amazing city and amazing region the airport that it deserves. LAX should be the airport that resembles all the wonders of the great city of Los Angeles, and our path forward is going to take us there. So I hope you're excited and join us on this journey.
Yeah, leadership challenge. I think, hire the right people, have fun, understand the psychological ups and downs of leadership. You have a big up, everything's great, and then I have a bus accident out there, in the same hour. And understand that and keep an even temperament, I think, is very, very important. And that's what I've tried to do in my career. But I think the fun thing, having fun, with what you do, I think is very, very important.
Thank you guys so much, Deborah Flint and Phil Washington. It's been great having you. And I want to give a special thanks to KPCC's in-person team and for all of you for being here. If anyone is interested, we have our Big Mic mobile recording booth outside there. You can share your views. We have a question. You can give an answer and partake in KPCC's reporting. And thanks a lot. We will be around, so if you have any questions for me, I will be in the lobby or here.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Amazing.